Um, Now, I'll let James take off on this one because he's started making comments on it. Yeah, it's to smoothly transition off of Apple. We'll talk about the fact that Apple has been dethroned, and that Chrome has overtaken Apple's Safari browser on desktops. And James pointed out an interesting fact on this, which is true. It's like, what were you saying about the browser shares or whatever?
Oh, I was just commenting that they only took over Safari in the U.S. Recently. In Europe, they did quite a while ago. One of the reasons is because Macs are a lot more popular in the United States than Europe. So.
Honestly, this was just recently it became unanimous by all polls. There's a lot of polls as to, granted, it's a magic 8 ball as to how accurate these things really are. Because it's like, oh, Internet, tell me what browser you're using. I command you by the power of I. But by a lot of the statistics, this actually happened even in the U.S. Around Christmas or Thanksgiving of last year. It was.
I've heard it being taken over quite a while.
Yeah, it's like it was very close for a while, but now it's a very key difference. It's it's a difference of more than 2 or 3%, which is enough
40.
that you're like, okay, this isn't a fluctuation, this isn't an inaccuracy, this is Chrome surpassed it. And this really means some interesting things for Apple's browser in the long run, because what tends to happen once a browser becomes insignificant in its market share, and Safari has never really had a significant presence overall. It's got an okay one, but it's not significant. And now that Chrome has just come in and upstarted and overtaken it, if you're only going to cater to a few browsers, you're going to cater to the greater standard. Opera obviously is way worse off than Safari, but yeah, it's like Go ahead.
That helps them a lot.
Yeah, well, but it's like, and even though Opera overall is doing good to maintain about a 1 or 2% overall market share, it's like they're not even a blip on the radar, and it's not. The difference is Opera is not trying to push any proprietary standard. They're not trying to say, hey, Internet, come do the Internet our way. Safari is.
Yeah.
And
the thing is that neither Safari nor Opera, with their market shares, in any position to do something like that.
Yeah, no, well, that's the thing. It's honestly, who sees now that Chrome has overtaken Safari? Who honestly sees the Internet rallying behind WebKit over WebM? Anybody?
Are you sure you don't mean H.264 over WebM?
The two are kind of linked, but yeah, I am referring more to the H.264 over VP8, yes.
Alright, yeah, because I think that Chrome is still WebKit browser.
Yes, but it's implemented differently. It's implemented on the open codecs and the open things, and so it's not the proprietary implementation of WebKit that Safari is trying to push and say, this is how HTML5 should be. It should be open except for this. Go ahead.
As far as the web app taking over, I think that, everyone's pushing with Adobe, and Google's kind of latching on with Adobe, and Adobe's making it so that all Flash can play WebM. They're really taking a lot of tactical steps to make sure that WebM succeeds.
Well, no, it's like, and the way Google has pushed out VP8 and the other parts of WebM, I'm sorry, Apple's never rolled anything else so smoothly. It was announced less than a few months ago. Every major platform, with the exception of Apple and Safari, in some way, is beginning implementation of it. I would not be surprised at all if it's implemented by Christmas, at the very least mid next year. nothing rolled out that quick in this industry. It's like, oh, we've announced this thing, and 2 or 3 years later, it begins to transition over to it. I think this is going to happen like that. That's,
They did a wonderful job with that.
yeah, it's like it's. I mean, Linux already has it built into FFmpeg. All the Linux distros haven't recompiled to it yet, but it's there for the whole open source community to play with. It's Flash guys. It's not. So that's part of what I mean. Yeah, Safari got overtaken, but that's what makes this so significant. It's. Do you think Apple has enough common sense left in them to realize maybe they should back off of this? And they can still push H.264 all they want, but do you think maybe they have enough common sense to realize maybe Safari should support WebM and the VP8 standard too?
They're going to eventually, I feel, but it's gonna when they really start taking a hit and they're really feeling it, and it's almost too late that they're gonna do it.
They also still kind of have a trump card with iOS not supporting Flash. They're kind of the platform that people are targeting with HTML5 right now. So I'm still kind of scared as far as WebM goes that H.264 could still be the platform that most people are aiming for.
Well, and at the end of the day, that's honestly going to depend on a couple of things. The real advantage to VP8 over H.264, because quality-wise, they're very close. It's not like it's a significant difference. The real advantage is if you encode it in VP8, if you go with the WebM standard over the standard Apple would prefer, you work everywhere but one place. Now, granted, that one place is large, that's the iOS platform, but it's also a lot of effort and a lot of server resources and a lot of runtime to re-encode stuff the other way, to make a second encode of stuff. And for mobile optimization, you need to make a second encode anyways. So you're talking about making a third just to keep one little company happy. The iPhone 4 and the iPad both needed to be a home run. And they've sold a lot of units, but they're not the only ones selling units. It's not like Android's flaking. And I don't think WebOS will obviously make a little sound. But on what you're talking about, that's directly related to the next story we're going to go into. We still got two. I don't know if we can do that in 2 minutes, though. Okay, I guess we'll put a mark in here and then just go into that. Oh, actually, yeah, we can. While we're on browsers and other stuff like that, let's see if we can get. Have y'all looked at IE9?
I have.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a little impressed with it, but it's gonna, whether or not that's gonna return the flow of mass IE abandonment is really gonna depend how Microsoft rolls that out and what other things it has besides the really neat things it has, like the hardware acceleration and other stuff.
Also depends on when they actually release it. A lot of other people could catch up by the time IE9 is out.
I don't think that they can catch up that. I mean, when is IE9 released?
Well, there's no official release date for it yet. You know?
From what I see now, it's probably decently soon, and
I'm thinking fourth quarter this year, second quarter next year, somewhere in there. I don't think it's going to be much longer than that. I mean, it might be if they throw a monkey wrench in the works, but I think that's around the time we should expect it. I mean, but it's evident by some of the other stuff, and we'll get to this in the next part. Is Microsoft really sucks at, even when they do make something good like this, at marketing it right. I mean, the way they're marketing IE8, which admittedly fixes a lot of the problems of IE, and IE9 does that much more, is saying IE 8 protects you from scams. Like we've all seen